Alright guys, so welcome to episode 2 of the Canadian Men's National Team Abroad series. Your comments in the first episode were very important for us trying to figure out which direction we want to go with this series. We've taken some of your guys' considerations of players to touch on as well as structure. So we're going to get into the episode now, and we're going to start with the Big Five. Now, just letting you guys know, the Big Five will sometimes change. For example, Eustachio has not played yet, so I can't really cover him. At the time of recording, he's playing later in the day, so he will be excluded from, unfortunately, this update, but it's because he just simply has not featured. He's got one of the late games. So let's jump into the Big Five and someone who has featured, and that is ALPHONSO Davies. So over the weekend, Union Berlin took on Bayern Munich. Bayern were the away side, and they're looking to bounce back from a brutal performance, unfortunately, for ALPHONSO Davies. I don't know if I want to dive too much into that one. Bayern lost 5-0 midweek in the Pokal, getting knocked out for the second consecutive season, which is a big surprise for them. But they did bounce back on the weekend, and ALPHONSO Davies did have a solid match. He started the match and played all 90 minutes, having a 91% pass completion rate. He created one chance for himself. He had 78 touches on the ball. He won 8 out of 10 of his duels, creating 5 recoveries for himself as Bayern went on to win 5-2 to go 8-1-1, top of the Bundesliga standings. It's a pretty another solid performance for ALPHONSO Davies. It was a wild game, 7-goal thriller, something that if you watch a lot of Bundesliga, you'll expect to happen sometimes when Bayern plays. But all in all, ALPHONSO Davies had a much better performance this game than unfortunately he did midweek against Gladbach, and Bayern continue right now top of the Bundesliga table. Moving on over to number 2 in our list, we're going to take a look at Jonathan David. Now, Jonathan David and his side Lille took on PSG in Paris, and our friend of the channel, Adrian from Rabona TV, actually went to the match, and he was lucky enough to see Jonathan David score live, so spoilers there. But if you guys want to check out that vlog, go over to his channel. It is a pretty good one. But let's take a look now at how Jonathan David and Lille did. Lille, like I mentioned, unfortunately lost 2-1 to PSG. Not the best performance you're going to see from Lille, but Jonathan David had a pretty decent showing as well. He started the match playing all 90 minutes. He had 33 touches on the ball, 1 created chance, 4 total shots, and of course scored a very nice goal. Yilmaz came down the left-hand side with a nice little cross, and Jonathan David, who's just growing as a striker, he's lethal in front of goal. He finds him in a small area in the box, finds his way to create space for himself, opens his body up, and just has that little one-touch pass into the back of the net to get his 8th of the Ligue 1 campaign. Unfortunately though for Lille, they now sit 12th in the table with a 4-3-5 record. It was a season that I thought under Gourvenec would be interesting. I wanted Jonathan David to stay at Lille for another season because I think he could have took his game to another level as well as experiencing Champions League, but it's starting to seem like potentially after this year, he's going to have to find another club because I'm not sure what happened. This is not the Lille side of last season. I didn't think Gaultier getting ripped from this club would do all this because it wasn't a massive overhaul. But Jonathan David at least is performing well, and Gourvenec needs to figure out a way to get this team performing because they are better than how they're currently performing. Even though in the match today, they actually did do pretty well against PSG, but just weren't quite able to get it done with a very talented PSG side. Moving on over now to our 3rd and 4th players of the Big Five. It's the duo playing for Besiktas, Hutchinson and Larin, and this was actually a Canadian affair in some way, as 3 Canadians appeared in this match. Sam Adekubi for Hatayspor, and of course the duo of Larin and Hutchinson for Besiktas. We will touch on Adekubi a little bit later in the series, but getting into the Besiktas players, Larin and Hutchinson, unfortunately for them, they walked away with a 1-0 defeat to Hatayspor, as Hatayspor continues to be the surprise addition this season in the Turkish league. For Hutchinson, though, taking a look at his performance, he played and started the match playing 68 minutes, having 45 touches on the ball, 88% pass completion, 3 recoveries, as he played in a CDM, his typical role in Besiktas' 4-2-3-1, where Kyle Larin started as a left attacking mid in that 4-2-3-1. He played in all 90 minutes of this match, and he came off of a pretty successful few matches there. He's getting his form, finding his stride out on that left-hand side. He picked up 50 touches in this game with a 79% pass completion. He had 1 shot and was fouled once as well, but unfortunately for Larin, it just wasn't one of those matches where he was able to get on the score sheet and really create a whole bunch for himself. He played decent from time to time for good stretches that match, but it was one of those matches where unfortunately Besiktas fell 1-0, and with that record now sit 4th in the table with a 6-2-3 record. Moving on to our 5th and final player in the Big Five for this week, it is going to be TAJON Buchanan, and what a perfect little story to end him off with the big five, as TAJON Buchanan and his New England Revolution have won some silverware. They are the Supporters Shield winners for this season, absolutely running over the MLS. Wasn't even close. Some incredible numbers and records that this squad has broken together. TAJON in this match was a really good one to watch if you guys were able to catch it. He started the match, played in all 90 minutes as New England beat Colorado 1-0. They played and he got an 89% pass completion. He created 5 shots for himself, had 3 of 5 successful dribbles, which is a pretty impressive rate there, with scoring the goal as well, the only goal of the match, as New England won the Supporters Shield. Very, very cool. And their incredible record right now is they sit 22-7-4. They are going to be ones to definitely watch in the playoffs, and TAJON Buchanan in his side is flying right now as he played on the outside of the right-hand side in that 4-3-1-2 system. Alright guys, moving on over now to England. We're going to dive right into League One because unfortunately Junior Hoylett did not feature for Reading, so we can't really touch on the championship news, but there are now 2 players we get to talk about in League One. The first one being THEO for Sheffield Wednesday. Unfortunately for them, they got a 2-2 draw, which was not the best, but Corbiano was actually pretty impressive coming on. He did not start the match, but was subbed on in the 55th minute. He had 4 shots in that time, had 4 crosses, 1 successful long ball, 20 touches, and it was a pretty impact substitution, in my opinion, from Darren Moore. Unfortunately, though, with Wednesday, they still sit 8th in the table with a 5-7-3 record. Staying in League One, we're going to take a look at Daniel Jebsen, a player that you guys were very, very adamant last week that we mentioned, and of course we should. He is a potential dual national. Obviously, England could be looking at him. He's still very, very young. We don't know what type of player he's going to become, but definitely someone who's going to be on the eye of the Canadian national team and John Herdman. He is a part of Sheffield United, and he's on loan right now at Burton down in League One, and he's been getting some really solid minutes playing in that striker role. And in this week, unfortunately, though, for Burton, it was a bit of a tough one against Wigan. They lost 2-0, but to be fair, they went down in the 15th minute to a red card. Jebsen did start the match and he played 64 minutes. He had a 100% pass completion, but he only had 6 passes, but still 6 for 6, can't complain. But because being a striker, when you're down a man, it's not easy to create chances, and this was a tough match for Jebsen. He created no shots. He did only have 13 touches on the ball, and as he started as a dual striker in a 3-5-2 system. With that loss now, Burton sit 9th in the table with a 6-4-6 record. Moving on over to Austria now, we're taking a look again at Frank Sturring, who did not feature last week, but I wanted to bring his attention to you guys because for Horn, he has been playing as a right back and a center back, and that combination of being able to play both allows me to think that he could be Alistair Johnson's backup, playing on that outside right center back role, because someone needs to show that they can do it. At the weekend, he did play a total of 90 minutes, getting the start as well. They played in a 4-3-3, and he did play this time in the center back role, but unfortunately for Sturring and his side, Horn, they lost 2-0 to sit 4-3-6 record with 10th in the table, so not the best role right now for Horn right now, but unfortunately for Sturring, he just got to find a way to get it working so they can get back to winning ways. Moving on over to Chile now for another player you guys recommended us keeping an eye on. It is Juan Cordova playing for Hachipato in the Chile League. He started the match playing at right back in a 4-3-3. He played 77 minutes in the match, having a 71% pass completion rate. He created 1 chance, had 3 crosses, and he won 6 out of 10 of his duels. Hachipato unfortunately sit in 16th place after drawing 2-2 at the weekend and have a 4-13-10 record. So they are right now looking very likely to get relegated, which is not fantastic, but is still a very important player for us to keep an eye on, considering that he's got that versatility. He can play as that right back, right wing back, and even right midfielder for John Herdman moving forward. Heading on over to Denmark and taking a look at MANJREKAR James and Vila, as I had a very tough challenge taking on Copenhagen. James started in the middle of a back 3, starting and playing all 90 minutes as Vila lost to Copenhagen 3-0. James had a pass completion record of 68%, not the strongest. He had 48 touches on the ball. He only won 4 of 12 duels, which is not very ideal for a central center back. He did have 8 long balls, which still shows the point that James loves playing out from the back. He had 7 recoveries as well, and unfortunately for Vila and James, they still sit in the basement with a 1-2-11 record. Things are not looking any easier for there, and isn't really what you want to see, considering how we would like to potentially see James get integrated back into the Canadian men's national team, giving that center back depth that's sometimes questionable and playing at a decent level like this, but it's tough to have week in, week out getting results like this for James. We hope him and Vila can turn it around soon. Moving on over now to Greece and taking a look at Derek Cornelius, a player whose Panathinaikos side had a really good start to the season, to be honest, and I thought this was going to be a really good move to build a lot of confidence for Derek Cornelius, but the tides have turned a little bit as they are not in the best of form, as Panathinaikos lost to Olympiacos, who, it is Olympiacos, the pinnacle of teams in the Greece league. They lost 2-1, and they now sit with a 1-2-5 record, sitting 12th in the table. Cornelius, though, did play all 90 minutes, playing in a back three as the outside left center back in a 5-4-1, so a very defensive shape. He did pick up a yellow card. It was a decent performance from him as they had to do a lot of defending, but all in all, we're not able to get the job done, and right now are slipping just a little bit more down the table. So Derek Cornelius and his side need to pick it up soon, hopefully get some points to make sure that they won't be fighting a relegation battle. Heading on over to Norway now, we're going to take a look at THEO BAIR, a player who could potentially show some potential in the Canadian men's national team, considering what our striker depth has looked like a little bit over the last few windows. He's a player who's playing in the second division in Norway, playing for HamKam, but good news for him is that it's a fun, successful season for him right now. He's getting a ton of minutes starting in pretty much every match for HamKam as they sit first in the table with a 17-6-3 record. At the weekend, he started and played 70 minutes as they drew 0-0, so it wasn't the most exciting and entertaining match for THEO BAIR, but is still a player playing in Europe who is playing for a successful winning side. And if you can compare the likes of how he's playing this season to, for example, James, who's sitting dead last in the basement in Denmark, it's a very different outlook because this is the side that's looking to get promotion back up to the top league in Norway, and this is the player who's getting a ton of minutes. So I'm excited to see if he's potentially going to be an option for John Herdman, just showing the success his team is having as well as the minutes he's picking up in Europe right now. So we'll have to wait and see, but another good look and another good weekend for HamKam as they get even closer to qualification, and John Herdman will definitely have to keep a little eye on THEO BAIR. Moving on over to Portugal and taking a look at Moreirense and Steven Vitória. We didn't mention him last weekend, but we had to mention him this weekend as his side took on a very challenging task taking on Sporting. Vitória did start in this match and played all 90 minutes, having an 81% pass completion. He had 7 long balls, played out from the back quite a bit with 57 touches. He won 4 of his 6 duels as well as 7 headed clearances and 6 recoveries, picking up a yellow card as unfortunately they dropped points and lost 1-0 to Sporting and sit right now in 17th place with a 1-4-4 record. So not the greatest start for Steven Vitória's side to the season, but they still have a game at hand and can crawl out of the relegation zone if they're able to pick up points. But all in all, they knew it was a tough task going up against Sporting, and Vitória held his own, had a pretty solid performance as well, and hopefully can pick up a little bit of confidence as well as we're going to need him coming into November's window. Alright guys, taking a look over at Russia now, we're going to take a look at a player you guys are very curious in, and it's a player that I really want to cover. It is RICHIE ENNIN playing over for Nizhny Novgorod in the Russian top flight right now. A little background on him for you guys who might not be fully aware is he's had a real journeyman career so far, starting over in Toronto with his academy there, going and playing in the likes of Latvia, Lithuania, the Russian second division, now in the Russian top flight. It's pretty cool to see his career path so far, a very unorthodox one, but one pretty cool fact about him right now, he's playing under Zenit legend striker Alexander Kucherov, who is a perfect manager to work under, especially because he is a young striker. Kucherov brought him to ENNIN right now, where he's actually playing as mostly and primarily that lone striker. So I think he's going to be a fantastic manager to learn from and help ENNIN's development playing in a very, very competitive league around the world. Taking a look at the weekend though for ENNIN, ENNIN started the match and played in 78 minutes, playing as a lone striker in a 3-4-2-1 setup. He had an 82% pass completion record with 35 touches on the ball, 1 long ball. He had 2 of 3 successful dribbles. He was fouled once, and in the goal that ENNIN scored, he was definitely involved. He didn't get technically counted as an assist, but the ball would not have ended up in the back of the net without ENNIN as well. So it was a pretty good way to get involved with the ball, even though he didn't technically get the assist. And unfortunately though for ENNIN, and ENNIN at the end of the match, they lost 2-1 to Lokomotiv Moscow, who is a very talented team. Very tough match. It would have been nice to sneak out that result, but right now they sit 11th place in the table with a 4-2-7 record. Alright guys, heading on over to Scotland now, a league where we know a lot of Canadians like to play in, but taking a look at a couple of them that had to get postponed. It was Ross Counties and the Patton brothers, who their match unfortunately got postponed. It's going to be played on Wednesday now, so no real update for them. Moving on over to Scott ARFIELD. However, ARFIELD is one that you guys were sort of back and forth with of how much you guys want me to cover him. Obviously a player who was so important to the Canadian national team, but is now on the outside looking in. We don't know if he even will ever play, but for the time being, we are going to keep touching on him just a little bit here on the channel, as Rangers had a very impressive performance over the weekend. ARFIELD started the match, played all 90 minutes as Rangers won 6-1 over Motherwell. He had an 88% pass completion record with 56 touches on the ball. He only won 1 of 8 duels, kind of hurt his overall match rating, but he did have 2 interceptions, 4 recoveries, and Rangers now sit top of the table still with an 8-3-1 record, as TVG and his boys are flying right now, especially with Celtic as well dropping points. ARFIELD and Rangers are looking that more likely to be the big favorites to win the league once again in Scotland. Moving on over to our keeper, Milan Borjan. We're going to potentially mention, because there are some other keepers that are playing in around Europe, but a lot of them just aren't starters. We will try to mention a little bit more, but for right now, the main man to talk about is Milan Borjan, who at the weekend played the 90 minutes again. He did get the start as Red Star Belgrade picked up a 3-0 victory to sit second in the table right now with an 11-2-1 record. It's really only going to be a 2-horse race for the title right now, but they do have a lot of ground to make up for. But once again, another clean sheet for Borjan, who's been one of the best keepers in the league, and it's great to see your keeper get top form, hopefully before coming back to start for the November window. Heading on over to Switzerland now, we're going to touch on a player who I am just loving more and more and more. It is my boy, Liam Millar. Again, I always do this. I always relate him back to Corbiano because it just shows what a move can do to the progression of your career. Starting versus not starting, playing in a team that kind of shows you that how to win, that winning mentality. Playing for FC Basel, my team now in Switzerland, but he's doing a fantastic job. They have that fun 4-2-3-1 system that I like to see. He's playing out at the left attacking mid right now for Basel, and had a good performance over the weekend once again, as he started and played all 90 minutes, just racking up more and more minutes right now in a very competitive league over in Europe. In that time, he had 7 crosses with a 79% pass completion. He was 2 of 4 dribbles completed, 2 shots on goal. He had a secondary assist with a very clever little dink chip pass that Arthur put on and ended up in the back of the net. So it was technically a secondary assist, but it was a very creative play to find his partner in crime, who's having a spectacular season. The Brazilian is up front for FC Basel. And on top of that, Millar had a nice goal as well, as Arthur ended up finding him. Those duo are so much fun to watch. If you see him on social media, they definitely have a good friendship going on there. But Arthur was doing such an incredible job that he even got a call up for the Brazilian national team. So a very quality striker leading the line for FC Basel and creating a fun partnership with Liam Millar, who I thought was influential on the match. I thought he had a very strong match and is growing in confidence, picking up a goal in what, like I said, was a secondary assist. And unfortunately, though, for Basel, they did drop points as the Young Boys lost 3-1 as well. So this was a good opportunity for Basel to just get that little bit extra points ahead, and they ended up drawing 3-3 to Zurich, but they still sit in first place with a 5-7-0 record. Heading on over back to Turkey, we took a look already at Hutch and Laren, who were on the losing side of this affair, but we didn't take a look at the man who's on the winning side for Hatayspor. It is Sam Adekubi, a player who's been such a revelation this season, such a solid pickup. It's incredible that Hatayspor saw something in this player to bring him in, and he's just been flawless this season, as does really Hatayspor, who lost their top goal scorer last season, which a lot of people forget. To still see these results coming up and picking up big points against Turkish giants like Besiktas is incredible. But taking a closer look at Sam Adekubi's performance over the weekend, he started the match as a left back in a 4-3-3, playing all 90 minutes, having an 81% pass completion. He was 5 of 6 duels won. He had 2 interceptions, 4 clearances, 4 recoveries, as Hatayspor won 1-0, and they sit second in the table right now with a 7-2-2 record. Can't say enough about Adekubi, and he's going to make it very, very hard for John Herman not to try to figure out a system that's going to include the left back. Moving on over to the MLS now, we're going to take a look at some Canadians who are trying to battle it out and trying to get into those final little playoff spots, but a player whose side has qualified for the playoffs in the West is Marc-Anthony Kaye. He played and won at the weekend, playing 62 minutes in that match. He started as a center midfielder in a 5-3-2 as they won 1-0 over Houston. He had a 74% pass completion record with 1 chance created. He won 5 of his 12 duels, 2 recoveries, and for right now for Colorado, they sit third in the standings with a 16-10-7 record. Moving on over now to another player whose side has qualified for the playoffs. It is Alistair Johnston and Nashville, who's been playing very solid, playing as primarily a right back, but even getting some time sometimes as a right wing back as well, which is funny because we know he plays in my eyes, his best position on that outside right center back position. But a big congratulations to ALISTAIR, JOHNSTON, and Marc-Anthony Kaye, whose sides have qualified. But there's a few other teams and players right now who are battling hard to qualify. Akindele and his side, Orlando, look likely to make the playoffs, where Dane St. Clair and his side, Minnesota, also look pretty likely, even though unfortunately for St. Clair, he's just not getting the minutes, being the second string keeper right now for Minnesota, but they do look like they get a solid chance at making playoffs over in the West. Moving on to Edwards, who's playing for LAFC right now. It's going to be a real challenge. I feel like it's very unlikely that they're going to make it, but getting a big result against Vancouver is really their only opportunity to see if they make it. But unfortunately, though, for Edwards and LAFC, I kind of hope that Vancouver can figure out a way through to qualify for the playoffs, so at least a Canadian team can do that. And finally, taking a look at Liam Fraser and his Columbus Crew, they are battling very hard. He is getting some decent minutes playing in that 4-2-3-1 system, but it's going to look very unlikely as well. They're going to have to get some results going their way to get into the playoffs, but they got to win. Liam Fraser got a decent performance as well, and the chances there that Columbus could somehow sneak into the playoffs. Alright guys, that brings us to the end of our second ever Canadian Men's National Team Abroad episode. This series has been a lot of fun making so far. It's only in episode 2, but you guys have been absolutely fantastic. So be sure down below in the comments to let me know if you guys watched any of the games over the weekend, if there's any players, again, that I didn't touch on that you would have liked me to. And let's just create this conversation going, because it's a lot of fun to cover these players and taking a look at how our fellow Canucks are doing abroad. So if you guys do like this series, be sure to put your suggestions in. Be sure to drop a like on the video as well. Drop a subscription as well if you're new to the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers, friends.